The sound of shattering glass filled the night as Emily said, "How could you do this to me, Sarah?" Sarah's eyes glistened, but her lips curled with defiance. David stood frozen, torn between the two friends. Mark, standing by the door, whispered, "This should never have happened." The silence between them felt heavier than the broken glass. Emily said, "I trusted you with everything." Sarah stepped closer, her voice sharp as a blade, "And I used it all, Emily, every bit of your kindness." David clenched his fists, his voice trembling. "Both of you are tearing me apart." Mark looked away, afraid his presence was only adding to the wreckage. Emily's tears streamed down her cheeks, lit by the pale glow of the streetlight. Sarah laughed bitterly. "You always thought loyalty could protect you." David shook his head, whispering, "This is the end of all of us." The night was cracked open, trust shattered like glass, and their bond, once unbreakable, burned into ash before their eyes. Earlier that week, Emily said, "Sarah, you are more than a friend, you are my sister." Sarah smiled faintly, but her eyes lingered on David too long. David laughed, brushing hair from his eyes, unaware of Sarah's intent. Mark watched, unease flickering across his face. Emily's voice carried warmth, her laughter echoing with trust. Sarah replied, "We've been through everything together, Emily." The truth hid behind her soft tone. David said, "I don't know what I'd do without both of you." Mark muttered quietly, "Sometimes bonds hide sharp edges." The words vanished into the air unheard. At a crowded cafe, Emily said, "Sarah, this is our spot since college." Sarah traced her fingers across the table, her smile strained. David leaned in, joking about old memories, his laugh easing the air. Mark stirred his coffee silently, eyes darting between them. Emily's joy spilled over, oblivious to Sarah's cold stare toward her. Sarah whispered, "Some things change, Emily." David raised his brow but kept smiling, unaware. Mark finally said, "Change isn't always what it seems." Emily laughed again, blind to the storm building behind Sarah's mask. That night, Emily said, "Sarah, promise me nothing will come between us." Sarah hesitated before nodding. David looked up from his phone, smiling gently. Mark adjusted his jacket, his silence louder than words. Emily's eyes glowed with sincerity. Sarah whispered, "I promise," though her voice cracked. David said, "You two have something no one can break." Mark sighed, whispering, "Even promises bend under pressure." Emily wrapped her arms around Sarah, convinced their bond was unshakable, while shadows clung to Sarah's smile. On Friday, Emily said, "Tonight is about us, no worries, just laughter." Sarah forced a laugh, glancing at David across the table. David clinked glasses, smiling easily. Mark leaned back, eyes narrowed, sensing something brewing. Emily's joy bubbled as she poured more wine. Sarah replied, "You're right, Emily, tonight is unforgettable." The undertone carried venom only Mark noticed. David said, "To friendship that lasts forever." Mark whispered, "Forever is shorter than you think." Emily's heart swelled with blind trust, unaware that forever was already breaking. The warmth of childhood lingered in Emily's voice as she said, "Sarah, remember when we used to sneak into the orchard?" Sarah laughed softly, but her eyes flickered away. David leaned against the tree, grinning. "You two were always rebels." Emily smiled at him, her joy untainted by suspicion. Sarah muttered, "We thought those apples were the sweetest treasures." Mark sat on a low branch, shaking his head. "And you both dragged me into trouble every time." Emily's laugh echoed, filling the cool air with innocence. Sarah's laughter joined, though it rang hollow, edged with distance. David said, "I wish I had been there back then." Mark replied quietly, "Maybe it's better you weren't." Emily clasped Sarah's hand and whispered, "Those days built us, Sarah." But Sarah's grip was faint, as if she wanted to let go of history itself. Emily said, "Sarah, our bond was carved in secret nights and whispered promises." Sarah nodded faintly, her smile trembling. David tossed a pebble into the stream, his reflection rippling with ease. Mark crouched nearby, watching silently. Emily laughed. "We once swore to never betray each other." Sarah replied, "I remember," though the words clung to her lips with weight. David asked, "What kind of promises?" Emily turned to him with warmth. "The kind that lasts a lifetime." Mark muttered, "Lifetimes can fracture." Emily's eyes glowed with faith, her heart still blind to the cracks forming. Sarah turned away, hiding the storm brewing beneath her skin. The night carried laughter as Emily said, "Sarah, remember the campfire songs?" Sarah hummed the melody faintly, her eyes fixed on the flames. David strummed a quiet rhythm on the guitar, his grin careless. Mark stirred the embers with a stick, his expression heavy. Emily sang softly, the words thick with nostalgia. Sarah whispered, "Some songs lose meaning when hearts change." David chuckled, "Songs never lose meaning." Mark said, "Unless the people singing them do." Emily leaned close to Sarah and said, "We were fearless once." Sarah pressed her lips tight, her silence colder than the night. "Ninyu Wainyu." Emily's voice was tender as she said, "Sarah, we dreamed of futures that always included each other." Sarah nodded, but her eyes traced David instead. David leaned back, smiling faintly, unaware of Sarah's gaze. Mark sighed, his breath visible in the cool night. Emily clasped Sarah's shoulders and said, "No matter what, we are unbreakable." Sarah whispered, "Yes, unbreakable," yet the words shook with deceit. David said, "The way you two speak makes me jealous of your bond." Mark muttered, "Even the strongest chains rust." Emily laughed through tears, clutching Sarah tighter. Sarah forced a smile, the mask slipping as shadows deepened. Emily whispered, "Sarah, you are the one person I could never lose." Sarah's breath caught, her eyes glancing toward David. David poured another glass, his laughter steady, masking tension. Mark swirled his drink, watching silently. Emily said, "Forever means standing by each other." Sarah nodded, her voice thin as she said, "Forever, Emily." David raised his glass and said, "To friendships that define who we are." Mark muttered, "Or destroy us." Emily clinked glasses with Sarah, smiling without doubt. Sarah forced her lips into a curve, though inside her heart twisted. David toasted again, laughter echoing, while Mark's silence hung heavier than cheers. Emily said, "Sarah, you never answer my calls anymore." Sarah tightened her grip on her phone, avoiding Emily's eyes. David stepped in, trying to ease the tension. Maybe she's just busy. Mark leaned on the wall, frowning as he observed the silence. Emily's tone trembled. "Sarah, even messages stay unread." Sarah forced a smile, her voice brittle. "You worry too much." David placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. "Don't overthink, Emily." Mark muttered, "Sometimes silence says more than words." Emily's eyes filled with hurt as she asked, "Since when did secrets replace our conversations?" Sarah turned away, muttering, "Things change." David chuckled nervously, "Everyone changes." Mark shook his head and whispered, "Not everyone lies." Emily said, "Sarah, why do you keep canceling our plans?" Sarah smirked faintly, "Not everything revolves around you." David's eyes widened as he said, "That's harsh, Sarah." Mark crossed his arms and muttered, "Truth often sounds harsh." Emily's voice cracked, "I thought we mattered." Sarah replied, "You assume too much, Emily." David tried to laugh it off. "We all get busy, right?" Mark's stare burned into Sarah as he said, "Busy or hiding?" Emily whispered, "Sarah, when did distance become your answer?" Sarah turned away, her silence colder than rejection. Emily said, "Sarah, you told David something I never shared with anyone." Sarah raised her brows, feigning innocence. "Did I?" David looked stunned. "Wait, Emily. I thought you wanted me to know." Mark slammed his fist against the table. "Sarah, that was not yours to tell." Emily's voice shook. "Sarah, that was my deepest secret." Sarah smirked. "Secrets are fragile when left with you." David's face darkened. "This isn't fair to Emily." Mark said, "It was betrayal dressed as conversation." Emily cried softly, I trusted you with everything. Sarah whispered coldly, and I used it all. Emily said, David, can't you see Sarah is pulling away from us? David sighed, running his hand through his hair. Emily, you're overthinking. Sarah chuckled. Emily always does. Mark muttered. Sometimes paranoia is just truth unmasked. Emily snapped. Sarah, you lied about last night. Sarah's grin faded. Do you think you own me? David shouted. Enough! Mark whispered. The cracks are showing. Emily's tears burned as she said, Sarah, I barely recognize you. Sarah's voice was sharp. Maybe that's the point. David lowered his head, silence pressing on him. Emily shouted, Sarah, you've changed into someone I don't know. Sarah sneered. I've only stopped being your shadow. David stepped forward, voice shaking. You don't have to tear her apart, Sarah. Mark whispered. This is Betrayal's first scream. Emily's chest heaved as she said, I gave you everything, Sarah. Sarah laughed bitterly. Exactly. And I took it. David slammed his hand against the table. This is destroying all of us. Mark muttered. The storm has begun. Emily's voice cracked. Why, Sarah, why? Sarah's eyes gleamed. Because kindness is weakness, and I won't live in your shadow anymore. Emily's voice cracked as she shouted, Sarah, I can feel your lies crawling through every silence. Sarah smirked with chilling calm. Lies are only truths you refuse to see. David stepped back, his heart pounding. Sarah, what are you hiding from us? Mark's tone was sharp. She hides behind the mask she crafted long ago. Emily's body trembled. Sarah, I trusted you more than myself. Sarah leaned closer, her words sharp as knives. That was your mistake, Emily, because I never wanted your trust. I wanted what you loved most. David's eyes widened, his voice trembling. You mean me? Me? Sarah's grin widened. Yes, David, she gave me her secrets and her loyalty, and I took you as the prize. Emily screamed. You stole the one person I thought I could keep safe. Sarah's voice burned. I didn't steal, Emily. You simply gave me the weapon. Mark whispered coldly. The betrayal has a name now, and it bleeds in the open. Emily's tears blurred her vision as she shouted, Sarah, how could you take David from me? Sarah's eyes gleamed with cruel delight. Because you left him unguarded, Emily, and I was stronger. David's voice cracked. This isn't love, Sarah. This is destruction. Mark muttered bitterly. Destruction wears the mask of desire until it burns everything. Emily's sobs grew heavier. I gave you my loyalty, Sarah. I defended you when no one else did. Sarah laughed bitterly. And that's exactly why I hated you. You always wanted to be the savior. David clenched his fists. Emily's love wasn't a chain, Sarah. It was a gift. Sarah's tone cut like ice. Then I shattered her gift and claimed freedom. Emily screamed. You destroyed more than friendship. You destroyed every promise we made. Mark whispered. Every promise was a blade, and tonight they cut deepest. Emily whispered, her voice broken. Sarah, you turned my kindness into your weapon. Sarah smirked cruelly. Kindness is weakness, Emily, and weakness is meant to be used. David slammed his fist on the table, his voice shaking. Stop this madness, Sarah. You can't destroy her just because you envy her. Mark's tone was steady. Envy has been her shadow for years, and now it wears her face. Emily sobbed. Sarah, you were my sister. You were my everything. Sarah's tone was razor sharp, and that's why it was easy to break you, Emily, because you trusted too much. David shouted, you twist every truth into a blade. Sarah leaned closer, her whisper cutting deeper. Blades are sharper when they're forged in love. Mark muttered, and tonight, love became betrayal's weapon. Emily collapsed into sobs, her heart torn apart by the weight of Sarah's words. Emily said, her voice trembling, Sarah, every memory now feels poisoned. Sarah laughed bitterly. Maybe they were always poisoned, Emily. You just never tasted the bitterness until now. David's face twisted with anger. Sarah, you've ruined everything for nothing. Mark whispered darkly, not nothing. Envy is her only currency. Emily's tears fell as she shouted, Sarah, I stood by you when no one else did. I carried your burdens when the world abandoned you. Sarah's lips curled, and I hated you for it. You turned me into your charity case, and I will never forgive you for that. David's voice cracked. Why destroy the only friendship that mattered? Sarah's eyes burned with rage. Because I wanted to see Emily break. I wanted her to know what it felt like to drown. Mark sighed. And now, she has shattered what none of us could save. Emily's voice was hollow as she whispered, Sarah, you took David not because you loved him, but because you wanted to wound me. Sarah smirked coldly. It was never about David, Emily. It was about proving I could win. David shouted, I am not a prize for either of you to fight over. Mark's tone was grave. You turned love into a weapon, Sarah, and it's a weapon that cuts everyone. Emily screamed. You betrayed everything we built, every secret, every bond. Sarah's grin sharpened. Exactly, Emily, and it felt glorious. David's fists trembled, his voice shaking. You will regret this, Sarah. This isn't victory, it's decay. Mark muttered. Regret waits like a shadow, even for those who run. Emily fell to her knees, whispering, You killed us with envy, Sarah. Sarah's voice cut like glass, and I'd do it again without hesitation. Emily screamed, Sarah, you ripped my soul apart. Sarah's laugh echoed coldly. Your soul was fragile, Emily. David stepped forward, fists trembling. Enough, Sarah, you've gone too far. Mark whispered, This storm cannot be stopped now. Emily's voice broke. You were my family, Sarah. Sarah snarled, I was your shadow, and I'm done living beneath you. David shouted, Emily gave you nothing but love. Sarah replied, Her love was a chain, and I shattered it. Mark muttered, Chains don't shatter without blood. Emily cried, You destroyed every promise we made. Sarah's smirk twisted, and every broken piece belongs to me. Emily cried, Sarah, you turned my kindness into a weapon. Sarah hissed, It was never kindness, it was weakness. David shouted, Stop twisting everything, Sarah. Mark muttered, This isn't friendship, it's war. Emily shouted, I trusted you with my life. Sarah smirked, and I used it to climb higher. David stepped between them. No one wins in this fight. Sarah's eyes burned. I already won, David. Emily's tears streamed. You lost the best friend you ever had. Mark whispered, And what's lost can never return. Emily shouted, Sarah, I gave you my heart, and you crushed it. Sarah's grin widened. I crushed it because I could. David roared, This is madness, Sarah. Mark muttered, Madness has been brewing for years. Emily's chest heaved. You betrayed every piece of us. Sarah's voice cut sharp. I betrayed because betrayal is freedom. David slammed his fist on the table. No, it's destruction. Mark whispered, Destruction wears her face tonight. Emily sobbed. I will never forgive you, Sarah. Sarah leaned closer. Good, because forgiveness is weakness too. Emily screamed, Sarah, you poisoned every memory we had. Sarah said darkly, Memories are meaningless when envy lives. David shouted, Sarah, stop before you destroy everything. Mark muttered, She already has. Emily's voice cracked. You are no friend of mine. Sarah smirked. I never wanted to be your friend, Emily. I wanted to be your downfall. David stepped forward, rage burning. Emily never deserved this. Sarah snapped. She deserved worse. Mark whispered, The storm has consumed them both. Emily shouted, Sarah, you broke me beyond repair. Sarah whispered coldly, That was always the plan. David's voice thundered, This ends tonight. Mark muttered, And endings always bleed. Emily fell to her knees, sobbing. Why, Sarah? Why? Sarah's eyes glinted. Because I could never stand being less than you. David clenched his fists. You've destroyed love, Sarah. Sarah smirked. Love was just my weapon. Mark whispered, And now the scars will never fade. Emily cried out, You turned my heart into ashes. Sarah's voice was sharp. Ashes burn brighter than trust. Emily whispered, Sarah, the friendship we built is gone forever. Sarah stood tall, her voice cold. Gone, but I feel lighter without it. David's voice trembled. This wasn't strength, Sarah. It was cruelty. Mark muttered, "Cruelty often wears the mask of victory." Emily's body shook. "I have nothing left to give you." Sarah smirked faintly. "Good. I never wanted your gifts." David said, "Emily, you will rise from this, even broken." Mark whispered, "Scars become armor in time." Emily's tears slowed as she said, "You'll never destroy me again, Sarah." Sarah's laugh was hollow. "I already did." Emily said, "Sarah, I carried every secret for you." Sarah snapped, "And I carried your shadow." David shook his head. "This isn't who you are, Sarah." Mark muttered, "This is exactly who she is now." Emily's eyes burned. "You used me and called it strength." Sarah's grin faltered. "I survived because I used you." David's voice cracked. "You've destroyed more than Emily. You've destroyed yourself." Mark sighed. "No one walks away untouched." Emily raised her chin. "I will heal, Sarah, but you will never escape what you've done." Sarah's silence screamed louder than her smirk. Emily whispered, "Sarah, I will walk away from you now." Sarah said bitterly, "Good, walk away like you always did." David shouted, "Enough! Sarah, stop twisting the truth!" Mark's voice was steady. Walking away is survival, not surrender. Emily wiped her tears. "I loved you as my sister, Sarah." Sarah sneered, "And I hated you as my rival." David said, "Emily, she doesn't deserve your pain." Mark added, "She will carry her own." Emily stepped back, her voice breaking. "Goodbye, Sarah." Sarah laughed faintly. "You'll miss me even in your hate." Emily said, "David, I must let go or I will drown in her betrayal." David nodded softly. "Emily, you are stronger than this pain." Sarah smirked. "Strength is just another illusion." Mark whispered, "Sometimes illusions are what save us." Emily's voice cracked. "I believed in Sarah more than myself." Sarah snapped, "And that was your mistake." David clenched his fists. "Stop tearing her down, Sarah." Mark muttered, "Her words are weapons, nothing more." Emily turned, whispering, "I will rebuild myself without her." Sarah's glare followed, but Emily walked on. Emily whispered, "The friendship is dead, but I am alive." Sarah said, "Alive but broken, Emily?" David stepped close, his voice firm. "She is not broken, Sarah." Mark's voice was calm. "Broken glass still cuts deep." Emily wiped her tears. "I will rise again, Sarah, and you will fade." Sarah smirked faintly. "I will never fade from your memory." David said, "Then she will use the memory to grow stronger." Mark whispered, "From ashes, strength is born." Emily's voice carried finality. "This chapter ends tonight." Sarah stood silent, the weight of loss pressing against her grin. Emily whispered, "Sarah, even in your victory you stand alone." Sarah's smirk wavered. "Alone, but free from you." David's voice trembled. "Freedom built on betrayal is no freedom at all." Mark muttered, "It is only another kind of prison." Emily's eyes glistened. "You destroyed us, but I will not carry you anymore." Sarah snapped, "You'll always carry me, Emily, in scars." David clenched his fists. "Her scars will heal, Sarah. Yours will rot." Mark's voice echoed, "Truth cuts deeper than betrayal." Emily took a deep breath. "You are no longer my friend, Sarah." Sarah whispered coldly, "Good, because I was never yours." Emily said, "Sarah, every memory now feels poisoned." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Then drink the poison, Emily." David's voice cracked. "Stop tearing her apart, Sarah." Mark whispered, "The poison already claimed her laughter." Emily's voice shook. "You wanted me to break, but I still stand." Sarah replied, "You stand on ruins." David shouted, "Enough, Sarah? The ruins will become her strength." Mark sighed. "Strength forged in fire lasts longer than envy." Emily raised her chin. "I will not cry for you anymore, Sarah." Sarah laughed bitterly. "Tears or not, I remain your ghost." Emily said, "Sarah, you turned every promise into a weapon." Sarah hissed, "Promises were chains meant to bind me." David stepped forward. "No. Promises are what made you love." Mark muttered, "And envy turned love into poison." Emily cried softly, "I would have given you everything." Sarah smirked. "That's why I took it all." David's jaw clenched. You took nothing worth keeping. Mark whispered, shadows cannot steal the sun. Emily's voice steadied. You cannot hurt me anymore. Sarah replied coldly, then why do my words still cut? Emily whispered, Sarah, I will heal, but you will never change. Sarah smirked, change is overrated. David shook his head, you're drowning in your own envy, Sarah. Mark muttered, she wears envy like armor. Emily's voice cracked, you cannot haunt me forever. Sarah sneered, I already do. David's voice rose, Emily, don't let her words own you. Mark whispered, words can be cages only if you stay inside. Emily took a steady breath, I choose to walk free. Sarah's laughter echoed bitterly, walk all you want, but my shadow follows. Emily whispered, Sarah, I lost a best friend the day I found out who you really were. Sarah's lips curled, and I gained freedom in your loss. David said firmly, this is the end, Sarah, not freedom. Mark's voice echoed softly, endings write their scars in silence. Emily's eyes burned, you didn't just betray me, Sarah. You betrayed every version of us we could have been. Sarah's smirk faltered, silence heavier than words. David stepped forward, Emily, walk away, leave this behind. Mark whispered, the scar will remain, but so will the strength. Emily turned, her final words cutting. Sarah, you used my kindness as your weapon, but it will never be your victory.